Hi, it's Maggie the Irish Gypsy here to bring you your June 2020 general reading. We are looking at June 1st through the 15th, so the first 2 weeks of June. This reading is for the earth sign of our beautiful bulls, the Taurus. So thanks for tuning in today. Thanks for everything that you do and have done and continue to do in support of this channel. Your likes, your shares, your subscribes, your donations, or just taking the time to tune in today. Thanks so much. So this is for Taurus for the first half of June. That's Taurus Sun, Taurus Moon, Taurus Rising. If your Venus is in Taurus, or if you're cross-watching for a Taurian. As you know, general readings always resonate a little differently for everyone. So if you know all of your signs, Sun, Moon, Rising, and Venus, watch them all because they can each give just additional bits of information and perspective on what's going on in your life. If any of the readings do resonate with you and you'd like to reach out for a personal reading or take a deeper look at something, you can click on the description link below for more info and contact details. Click on that little arrow that pulls down information. You'll see my email address there, Maggie1McGuire@gmail.com. I can usually respond to initial information, initial inquiries with more information within the same day or the first 24 hours. And I do readings full time, so scheduling the actual reading is done in a pretty timely fashion. I'm pretty diligent at working with everyone's schedules and my own to get readings set up as quickly as possible. So email me if you're interested. All right, let's move right into this, Taurus. Let's see what is in store for you for the first half of June. Okay, Taurus. Also, I know there's been some volume issues with the last set of generals. I finally get a new computer, and now I have volume issues with it. So I'm using an external microphone, kind of a cheap one because it could get here quickly, and I ordered a very nice video conferencing one. But shipping is kind of crazy these days, so that one's taking longer. So hopefully this one will carry us through this set of generals. And for those of you who need to know or want to know, I am using the Legacy of the Divine Tarot. Okay, Taurus, we begin with the Four of Swords, followed by the Nine of Swords, the Two of Swords, followed by Faith, which in other decks is known as the Hierophant. From the bottom of the deck, your overall energy and focus for the first half of June is the Six of Cups. So, the past, with the Six of Cups. Strong historical connection with the past. Now, the past can mean a lot of things. It can go all the way back to childhood, parents, childhood friends, places of origin, childhood lovers or sweethearts. It can represent just kind of looking back on the past with nostalgia, which for a lot of people today can be like looking back to, last year when we were all able to gather together openly in places and have more freedom of movement. So yeah, kind of this nostalgic feeling. We always tend to look at things through rose-colored glasses often in the past as well, and that can be what the Six of Cups represents. Looking back at a time when we felt like children do, more carefree and less concerned with the worries and stresses and cares that we have today. Because it looks like you have some here. Out of 5 cards, 3 of them are swords, Taurus. Swords are the suit that's governed by the element of air. And that's all about what goes on up in our heads. Belief systems, ideologies, perceptions, perspectives, truth, education, higher learning, and how we communicate what's in our heads to the outside world. So we have the Four of Swords clarified by the Nine of Swords. So the Four of Swords is a card of retreat. It's a card of taking a step back from whatever the challenge or battle or source of conflict is. And the conflict might be, because it's represented by swords, mental thoughts kind of going around and around and around as well. and feeling kind of exhausted by that, because I often see the Four of Swords comes up when someone is feeling tired, worn out, exhausted. And the Four of Swords, is about taking a step back temporarily in order to rest and recuperate and thereby get a different perspective, especially if you need to make decisions or choose a course of action. It's never a good idea to do it when you're in emotional turmoil or feeling, hungry, tired, exhausted, all of that. So the Four of Swords is a card about taking a temporary break, feeling tired, worn out, exhausted, not feeling well, could be feeling ill. Now, clarifying that Four of Swords is the Nine of Swords, the Insomnia card. I never like seeing this card. Every time it comes up, I hate seeing this card for people, because it represents an extreme amount of anxiety, stress, worry, fear of one particular overriding thought or a lot of different thoughts or ideas or things kind of swirling around in your head. This is a card of kind of your worst fears kind of rising up and hijacking your mind and feeling really tired and exhausted. It looks like you're tired of stress, you're tired of worry. The Nine of Swords can often come up too for what my oldest daughter calls future tripping, fear of the future. What am I going to do if this happens? What am I going to do if this doesn't happen? Worrying about a future which hasn't unfolded yet. And it doesn't mean that the source of your fear or your worry or anxiety is not valid, but the Nine of Swords comes up when you're just chasing it around and around and around and around in your head. So no wonder, you're feeling tired, you're worn out, you need a break, you need to get a different perspective and get a break from this, which also may be why your overall focus is kind of this nostalgic energy, looking back, perhaps looking back at a person, a place, a time, a relationship, a job, whatever, where you didn't feel so stressed out and worried about what might or might not happen again. Sometimes during periods of difficulty or challenge, it is a temptation, sometimes healthy, it depends on how much you focus on it. The temptation is to kind of, as a reprieve or a mental rest, we tend to look at something in the past through rose-colored glasses when we're going through difficult times or lonely times, even if that thing in the past wasn't always that great. We look at it through rose-colored glasses. You know what I'm going to do? Let's clarify this Six of Cups, this card of nostalgia or the past. Let's see what that's about. Okay, we had some jumpers come out. Two cards jumped out. We have the Seven of Coins, followed by the Ten of Coins. So coins is earth energy, and that usually addresses the physical structure of our day-to-day life, how stable or secure the things in our physical life are, the efforts we put into acquiring those. So it's often things like, money, finance, property, resource, assets, home, job, etc. Long-term stable relationships, connections with people. So what is this that you're thinking about and perhaps stressing about? Well, this is a card about taking inventory, taking a look at, all the effort that you've put into something and wondering what to do based on that, or trying to make decisions based on that. You can see it's harvest time here. So this person has put a lot of effort. It looks like you've put a lot of effort into something. And you're trying to make decisions. Should I take everything that I can? Should I harvest what I can and then go off and start a new crop somewhere else? Should I invest in something else? It's at a 7, which is a decent crop, but can you turn it into a 10? Can this be a better crop? Does it match the efforts that you've put into it? Are you getting back at least as much as you've put in, or more or less, and trying to make decisions based on that? So this is a card of taking stock, taking inventory, kind of evaluating the efforts that you've put into something so far. And here's the Ten of Coins, long-term stability and security. This is the utmost fulfillment of the earth energy of this suit, sometimes referred to as the inheritance card. It has a strong connection to home and family. Sometimes inheritance, family home, family business, family estate, long-term marriages and relationships. So this is what you're thinking about. This is what you're evaluating. You're looking at you're taking a look at something which has to do with your home and family, or, I mean, if this isn't finances or money or the actual home itself, it can be also a long-term relationship or marriage that you're looking at and you're evaluating, and perhaps you're trying to make decisions about. Perhaps there's some, I mean, it looks like there's, you're wanting to take a break. You're stressed out and exhausted from worrying about something. Something which has to do with the long-term stability and security of your day-to-day life. It could be finances or material resources. It could be an actual piece of property, your home, or it could be a long-term relationship or marriage. Let's take a look at what this fear is about. What's this Nine of Swords about? Where your cards are very active, Taurus. What's this Nine of Swords about? Your cards keep wanting to jump all over the place, Taurus. Okay. All right. The Three of Wands. Typically a very positive card. This is about having put some work and effort into something, and you're watching the ship come in and you're wondering what's on the ship. It's generally a card of having put in some work and you're starting to see it pay off. You're starting to see your efforts pay off. You haven't reached that long-term goal or vision, but this is, having small goals that you need to meet and exceed on the path of achieving something larger. And you're starting to feel pretty positive about it, and also what the long-term results are going to be. So it looks like part of, what you might be worried about is whether or not something is going to move forward, and whether or not you're going to start seeing that really quickly here. And right behind that we have the Ten of Cups. You have the two positive tens, the Ten of Pentacles and the Ten of Cups. Not that the other two aren't positive, but they usually represent the ending or the winding down of a cycle of something difficult. The Ten of Cups is a happy home card, marriage, childbirth, blessings. So this is on your mind. You have the long-term stability and security of your home, your family, or perhaps a relationship, a long-term relationship on your mind. It looks like you have some fears and concerns about what's going to happen to it in the future. Whether or not something is going to move forward or not, whether there's going to be, we have the Knight of Cups right after that too, which is an emotional or loving offer. So perhaps some of you are thinking about, a long-term relationship or marriage. You've put a lot of effort into it. It could be a long-term job too. It could be your home, a property itself. It could be, some kind of inheritance issue. But it ties in with how stable and secure you feel in your day-to-day life. It feels like it looks like something you've already put a great deal of effort into, but you've been worrying about it a lot, worrying about it constantly. Is this ever going to go anywhere? What should I do about this? I've already put all this effort into it. I don't know. Can I turn this Seven of Coins into the Ten of Coins? Is this a long-term relationship you put a lot of effort into, and you're waiting for it to go to the next stage or get married, and you're just maybe not seeing results of that, or you're going through some difficult times, and you're worried about, whether or not something's going to move forward successfully, and if so, when are you actually going to start seeing, the results of this? Because it feels like whatever this is, whether it's a person, a relationship, a job, your home, there's some kind of historical attachment to it. There's a history here, and a lot of work and effort has gone into this here. And you're worried about the future of it. Really worried about it, and kind of tired of worrying about that and needing to take a break. So next we have the Two of Swords, followed by Faith. So, God, I can feel kind of the stress in my body. It's just like this, I don't want to deal with this. And that could be what this is too, because the Two of Swords is a card that can represent feeling stuck, feeling blind, not knowing which way to go. But it's also a card that indicates a pretty assertive reluctance and resistance to actually deal with it right now. in the regular Gilded Tarot deck, which I often use for generals, the swords are crossed in front of this person, but in this one, it's much more aggressive and assertive. You're like clasping the daggers in your hand and you're holding them out. You're ready. It's a defensive, protective gesture. And the blindfold can often represent a reluctance and a resistance to actually look at what's in front of you. Because then once we acknowledge something, especially if there's something wrong, then it puts us in a position to have to make a decision about it, choose a course of action. So sometimes this can represent just stubbornly, saying, not right now, I don't want to look at this right now, I don't want to deal with this right now, I just don't want to. I mean, I can understand why, because, in the first week of June here we have, being exhausted by thinking about this over and over and over again and needing to take a break from that. And so perhaps that's what you're doing in the second week of June. Now, what clarifies that Two of Swords is faith, the Hierophant, which can represent literally faith. Large institutions, organized religions, businesses belonging to a certain culture, cultural identity, tradition, walking on the sidewalk. Faith represents, doing what most people do, like walking the conventional path. And here it can represent trust in that. It might be trust in the unseen too, trust in God's spirit, your angels and guides. This is about the establishment. It's about what we're used to doing. It's about kind of being under that sheltering umbrella where everybody's kind of doing the same thing or doing it in the same way. For some of you, this could be having difficulty in having faith that this situation is going to work out well for you. For some of you, this may represent that because you're just tired of worrying and stressing about this, that you are sticking with what you know because that's what makes you feel safe. And for the time being, regardless of how the details and specifics work in your life, Taurus, this looks very much like somebody who is making the decision, at least in the first half of June. We're only looking at a pretty short period of time, that you just, for the time being, you don't want to deal with this because you're exhausted of kind of chasing it around in your head over and over and over again. For some of you, this might be a long-term situation, a long-term relationship, a long-term project, something that you've been at or with for quite some time. You've put in a pretty extended period of time and effort and love and money, depending on what the situation or relationship is. And you've just reached a point and it feels stuck, like it's not progressing further. And maybe what it has been and what it is decent, but you're wanting something more. You're wanting it to move further. You're wanting it to go to another place of, the next level of responsibility and commitment and establishment, which is what, faith and the Hierophant can represent too. It's one of the cards that represent, like in a relationship, doing things in a certain order, doing things in a certain way. And perhaps being very stubborn about that. And some of you, it feels like you're feeling kind of discouraged. You've been dwelling on it, thinking about it, too much so. The Four of Swords and the Nine of Swords, Taurus, is spending way too much mental energy chewing on this thing. It's kind of like a dog chasing its own tail. And the Nine of Swords can also represent that the more you think about this, the bigger it gets in your head, the worse it gets in your head, until it's so big and so difficult or challenging or horrible that it actually doesn't fit the actual external reality. So you do need to take a break. I think you need to take a break and just not think about this at all for a while and just focus on something else, focus on taking care of yourself, focus on trying to have a little bit more fun, because this is taking up too much space in your head and your heart, and it's affecting you in other ways as well. This is about I think taking a step back and letting, God, Spirit, your angels and guides kind of have this. If there's decisions to be made, and I'm not kind of seeing that here, nor is there any indication that you should, they need to come a little later, because all of this stress energy is not a good time to be making this decision in. So let's pull some advice and guidance cards for you. Let me put those back in. Let's pull a card. Let's see what the advice is. I mean, this is a short period of time too. We're just looking at the first half of June. So let's see what Spirit thinks is the best advice, feedback, guidance, how Taurus can best navigate through the first 2 weeks of June. What should they focus on? I'm just getting a sense that this is so heavy, it's taking up, and the more you think about it, the more negative it gets in your head, and that at least that has to kind of stop. And for some of you, this stress might actually make you feel physically ill, interfere with your sleep, etc. Your advice is the Empress. This is actually about taking care of yourself. The Empress is a card of fertility, of nurturing, but it can also be a card of self-indulgence and abundance. This woman is pregnant, she's happy, she's surrounded by, all this beautiful, food and all these beautiful flowers. This is a card that can represent, self-indulgence and focusing on yourself and taking care of yourself, particularly in a very, physical, sensual, almost decadent kind of way. It can be about, and this is your advice for the first 2 weeks of June, is the Empress. Focus on self-care and self-nurturing. Normally I would say, this is where you go out and get, have your day at the spa, get a mani and pedi, get your hair done, have a massage, go walk barefoot on the beach. A lot of us are kind of limited in not being able to do some of those things right now because of, the global pandemic. But there's things that you can do, and this is about kind of focusing, ultimately, whatever you're able to do that can recharge yourself and make you feel better, particularly in a physical way, because then that also makes us feel better, on a mental and emotional level as well. That's what Spirit is saying your focus should be for the first 2 weeks of June, because, bag this energy. This is too much negativity, too much focus on it. Take the focus off for just at least the first 2 weeks of June, as much as you can, as safely as you can. Focus on yourself. Have some fun. Do some things that make you feel good. That make you feel good about yourself when you're done with them too. Kind of a more self-focused time period, and get away from this for a while. So, Taurus, that is your reading for the first half of June. I hope that you found it helpful and useful. Again, if any of these readings resonate with you and you'd like to take a deeper look at something, you can reach out for a personal reading. Click on the description link below. Email me directly at maggie1maguire@gmail.com. I'd be delighted to work with you. I will see you all again in a couple of weeks for the June 2020 mid-month general readings. Until then, stay safe and stay well. And I wish you many blessings and hope to see you back here again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.